Thank you. Mats Jägstam, acting president here at Jönköping University. I'm really pleased to see so many delegates here. Not just because it's an important event. It's, for me, I actually had a preview of the conference yesterday, where one of the delegates presented their information about what they are doing at the moment to our management team. Today, I think this type of conference and the knowledge that you gain at this type of conference are even more important, because the possibilities that we have concerning e-learning, blended learning, etc., the digitalization in learning is something that we really need to take into account, especially today when we can see populism driving the countries around us. You're going to have a really important task in actually making knowledge that are produced at the university to spread all over the world. At this conference, you're going to learn a lot. I'm quite sure about that. And you have a lot of information and knowledge. And you also have a big task when you arrive back home to your host organizations. Because as the information that I gained yesterday is going to affect our strategy at our university, I hope that you will have the possibility, or I actually encourage you to actually talk to your managers to be able to make them reflect on what we actually can do. Because we need to spread the information and knowledge about what we actually are producing in academia. You came to the right place at the right moment, because it seems like it's going to be summer here in Sweden today. So this is probably this day we have summer in Sweden. It has been a quite tough weather here, and the climate is as it is in Sweden, as you know. So take the opportunity also, not listen to your peers and to discuss your subjects, but also take the opportunity to look around here and see what's happened in Jönköping and the surrounding here. We have the destination Jönköping, and they will be present here at campus, so you can ask them if they want to know what to see here in Jönköping. And there is a lot of things to see here in Jönköping. We actually have one of the persons here. Finally, I'm really happy to say, to host this kind of conferences for us, it's one of the most important things that we do. Not only because I got the preview yesterday, because it's also about sending information for us in our organization, that this is one of the most important things. So what I have done is that I have said to all my colleagues, please attend. Even if you can just attend a little bit, or one track, or hear one session. So take the opportunity to actually take the opportunity to talk to each other and to learn. And I wish you all welcome to this conference. Thank you.
And before I continue for the protocol issues, I would like just to repeat the words of gratitude to University of Jönköping for the opportunity for Eden to come to your university, because we feel very much at home here, and we are confident that we will have one of the best conferences of Eden. Thank you very much. So welcome all to the 26th conference of Eden that takes place in the city where everything and everyone grow, as we heard yesterday from the chair of the council of the city. It's my great pleasure to greet you here and also to be already in the turbulence of the events that are going on in the Jönköping conference, because yesterday we already had great sessions, great pre-conference events. But before that, we need to give the right tribute to the people and the organization who made this possible. So let me first of all start with the words of thanks to those involved in preparations of this conference. First of all, Eden would like to thank the university that I just did already for hosting the event, for committed and professional support of their excellent staff, because people are the first. Also, we would like to give the personal thanks to the person who contributed great with her possibilities to organize all things on the venue. It is to Ylva Lindberg that I would like to invite on the stage, the Dean of Research and the Executive Coordinator of the event at the university. Please, Ylva, and I would like to ask you to applaud her very much. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Ian also would like to thank the conference publication sponsor, Contact North from Ontario, and I don't see Paul. Paul, please stand up to say hello to everyone. A long-standing, important strategic partner of Eden. It's an honor to welcome you, Paul, at the conference. And please join us in expressing gratitude to Contact North on your return. Eden would also like to thank very much in the preparations of the conference of Eden has received valuable support from the Regional Development Agency, Destination Jönköping, and we are grateful to the people and we are grateful for the cooperation in person to their relations manager, Andrei Petzold. Thank you very much. So thank you all of those people who are not visible here at this plenary, but are behind Ylva and other people involved in the organization of the conference. Thank you all. Eden and Scandinavia has already a lot in common. This is the fourth conference held in Scandinavia so far for Eden. The first conference was held in Stockholm, where we discussed that learning has no limits. Then we had a conference in Helsinki in 2005 to discuss lifelong learning in e-learning, how the synergies are brought together. And then we shared the joy of learning in Oslo in 2013. We have the proof that a lot of innovations come from Sweden and from Scandinavia in general to education in Europe. So we are very proud to get back here, to get more of those innovations that Eden will be able to incubate, experiment, and then research and produce the publications and share with the members in the network as well as in the member institutions. Here in Jönköping, we expect a very fruitful conference because it's very rich in content. First of all, we meet the great challenge to discuss diversity matters. Well, every one of us have a lot of things in common with those matters, and I hope that sharing experience is extremely important. The other aspect is humanism and technologism. And we also have to deal with that and to discuss what are we going to do with this. Actually, we have a lot of topics covered by Eden Jönköping conference. how we will manage diversity through learning, ICT and culture aspects, ICT competence developments, e-skills, e-work, e-learning, new learning beyond competency approach, development of effective and culturally sensitive learning resources, developing open educational practices, academic success and flexible learning, OER policies from Europe, Canada, Australia, and all in all, we have more over 200 delegates from 34 countries. This is also the first time when Eden has a special focus on quality again, back to Eden, but already in a series of workshops. So every day you will be able to enjoy the sessions that are dedicated for quality enhancement in technology enhanced, technology enabled, and e-learning. And yesterday we already kicked off that discussion on what is the concept and how we need to approach it. So I can imagine that each of you will find your most interesting and diverse topic in the conference. And we start already now with this plenary session. So we have today in the opening plenary session our great honorable keynotes, 3 keynotes that I will introduce a little bit later on. But before that, we have a person who was not able to come physically to Jönköping in conference, but sent in his video message that is being prepared right now. In a moment, we all will see the welcome from Marco Markula. Marco Markula was elected president of the European Committee of the Regions in February 2015 for a 2.5-year term of office. He has been a member of Finland's Espoo City Council since 1980, where he was president from 1990 to 1992, and again in 2010. He's a member of the board of the Helsinki-Uusimaa Regional Council and has been chairman of Espoo City Planning Board since 2004. So we accept his apologies, and now we are going to view his message to Eden Jönköping conference delegates.
Dear Eden Network active members, since I have a history with many of you 10 years, 15, 20 years ago, a lot, so let me say as well, dear Irina, President, dear Andras, the Secretary General, I am really committed in sharing some of my thoughts with you. Unfortunately, I was not able to join you in person. I need to be the same time when you have the conference in Malta with digital agenda assembly and several other meetings with key ministers and knowledge creators. But let me first stress heavily so that, as you all know, you have had the digitalization in your hands. You have had the latest knowledge in your heads and in your computers. But now the transformation finally is happening faster than ever. This paradigm shift is a reality today, and with the European Committee of the Regions, where we, with our 350 members, mayors, regional presidents, councillors from all parts of Europe, and practically another 350 alternate members as well. So we represent really the kind of bottom-up perspective of what needs to happen in Europe. We are an official EU body operating on behalf of the cities and regions. And on that, one of our strong priorities that we focus and we want to encourage everyone to be active in their own personalized, but as well on team learning. Learning is the key. We need to get the latest knowledge in active use. And on that, so you all have a special role to play. You can bring us the new solutions, how to be more motivated using the different instruments, integrating the knowledge elements from different parts of Europe to be, let's say, coherent, more target-oriented key success factors for the future. And on that, so I want to share two special parts of this. The first is really what I feel stronger than ever, the essential element in learning. That's kind of tailor-made, kind of personalized approach to knowledge. And that means that everyone needs to be motivated, but supported, assisted as well to create their own knowledge platform, which is quite often part of your own computer system, but not just to have different folders or different files there, but they need to be kind of structured the way to support your own ambitions, the way how you want to operate with, how you build your own global teams, many parallel activities that you want to share the best knowledge and get the others to support your own role as well. And on that, it's all about the personalized kind of approach, commitment to learning, but it is as well so how you use the different universities, educational establishments, the knowledge creators, including companies as well. But as is the case today, quite often, so people are doing many parallel work, so they have their own supervisors, the professional experts in their own network. So you need that strong support as well. And that's about knowledge sharing, so that what you give, the more you give, the more you get from the others as well. So this is part of building this kind of collaboration platform, co-creation platform. And on that, I hope that you could be really looking for what is the role of cities or city-driven regions as catalyzers, as enablers of this new platform economy, where it starts from the individual personalized platform, but as well integrating different production systems, the new apps as well, especially created by the young generation, where you can create new forms of processes, digitalized processes, which bring the latest knowledge in active use. The other element on this whole issue is that how to encourage open innovation. We even call it Open Innovation 2.0, because that's strongly kind of team-driven activities, so that everyone is building several parallelly operating teams that you can use in your professional role. And on that, e-learning, distance education, all the forms that you participants of this Eden conference are operating very strongly. So you play a strong role on developing these new forms. But you need to be experimenting, testing, piloting, creating prototypes, and then jointly we can scale them up for the use throughout Europe. Around 2 years ago, we had a special learning camp, innovation learning camp in my own city, Espoo, in Finland, and some of the key messages, what we then wrote down as a key Espoo action plan, were really on this, how to co-create these platform thinking. And that's what we, the Committee of the Regions, are strongly encouraging our pioneer cities and regions to form and take action. And on that, learning is the core, and the new forms of collaboration through learning that makes a lot as a success factor for the future. And that's what I would like you to give feedback for me as well, so that I can share these your best ideas throughout Europe. I strongly support your work. I want to encourage you to have a successful conference, but not only among you who are there in Jönköping, meeting yourself face to face, but let the messages go through the net for all other actors as well. Please share some of your ideas with me as well.
Thank you very much, Professor Markula. And now we start our keynote session. And today we have 3 wonderful keynotes. And looking at my watch, I see that we have actually half an hour for each keynote that should be embedding both presentation and the questions from the audience. And if we are lucky, in the end, we may have a couple of more time for discussion. So please, we do start with Stefan Kraskinski, who is the professor and director for the technology of learning unit at the School of Education and Communication in Engineering Sciences in the Royal Institute of Technology. His research focuses on how to support online learning on communication and collaboration in higher education, schools, in workplace, and in formal settings. This is a challenge. Current projects include one-to-one online tutoring, blended synchronous learning, ICT professional development across schools, and online psychoeducation. His PhD is from Lund University about participating in synchronous online education. Please, Stefan, the floor is yours for diversity in learning.
Okay, good morning. Can you hear me well? No? Let's try to do. Now it works better. Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to be here with you today. I'm one of those persons who want to use their own laptop, so that's why you have to bear with me for a couple of minutes. So again, it's a pleasure to be here, and this is actually the university where I used to work when I did my PhD, so it's special to be back here to give this talk. So when I started to prepare for this keynote, I had this title, Diversifying e-learning, and I had this vision that I would give you lots of different examples how we could expand e-learning beyond how we see it today. But then I realized that time is quite short, so I decided to focus on one of those examples, and that is the example of online learning in one-to-one relationships. So in this talk, I will really argue and try to inspire you that this is a very effective model from a pedagogical point of view, but has received quite limited attention, at least from research. And one of those reasons is probably often argued that it's because of economical reasons. But maybe this is something that is about to change. So when we think about e-learning research and development, it's often based on this idea that we have large cohorts of students, they're taught by a teacher. And although the lecture has been heavily criticized, it still has, I think, still has a role. Sometimes we need to lecture one-to-many. So, for example, if I wanted to talk about one-to-one online learning with all of you, it would take a lot of time. So it's a way of delivering something. And in many ways, if we look at the e-learning development today, it's very much influenced by these one-to-many models learning. So, and one such example, for example, is MOOCs, that is very much based on this idea. And if we look at the e-learning field, and for many of us who are here today, we have to a large extent focused on many-to-many learning. Sometimes it's called collaborate, connectivist, network models of learning. And these models, as I think you know, typically emphasize that the teacher should encourage students to collaborate and to learn from each other. But in these models, we have experienced many challenges. For example, putting these models into practice beyond time-limited projects has certainly been a challenge. Getting teachers in higher education have no or very little pedagogical training to work in these ways is certainly a challenge. So I still believe in these kinds of models, like most of us here, I think, do today. But I think they can be developed further and they can be complemented. So one model that has received quite limited attention, and maybe especially in recent years, is this idea of one-to-one online learning. And it's maybe not that different from network learning as you might think. So a network can actually be described as many one-to-one relationships that jointly form a network. And I think also that this perspective could help us better understand network learning. So if we dig deeper into what is it that makes people learn one-to-one, that can also help us to develop collaborative network models of learning. If you look at this image, we could imagine that this flower represents tutoring in an educational institution at a given point in time. So at the institution, there are a number of tutors, and each of these tutors tutor a number of students. And in a way, this is also a network. It's a different kind of network, it's a different kind of structure, but it's still a network. So what then could the benefits of one-to-one online tutoring be as compared to more conventional models of learning? First, we've learned that tutoring sessions can be tailored to the student. So instead of focusing on problems that most students or a majority of students are struggling with in a class, in one-to-one tutoring, we can focus on the specific problems that the actual student is facing. Also, social barriers are typically less apparent since there's a dialogue between two individuals. So in a classroom, for example, we know that many students do not like to ask questions or speak in front of others in a classroom. And not at least if you compare with this kind of setting, it's certainly a challenge to get interaction going. And third, students are simply exposed to better questions. So researchers found that tutors ask better, or at least a different type of questions in one-to-one tutoring. So instead of posing these more general questions, the tutors can ask specific questions that are tailored to each individual student. So back in 1984, Bloom did a now quite famous study that compared conventional mastery learning and one-to-one tutoring. And he found that, he and his PhD students found that an average student's tutoring in one-to-one online learning performed, it wasn't online, one-to-one learning, performed 2 standard deviations better as compared with conventional instructional methods. And this means then that an average student in one-to-one tutoring performs better than 98% of all students in a conventional class. So it's a quite big difference. He also described in the middle here this idea of mastery learning, basically where a student needs to achieve a certain level of mastery to move forward. So for example, it could be 90% on a test, and if you don't achieve it, you get more feedback and instruction, and then you move on. And we could see that mastery learning were somewhere in the middle there, but still not as effective as one-to-one tutoring. So, you know, there are things about this study that can be discussed, of course. The way that Bloom measured achievement, for example, through tests. We know that we can learn lots of other things than we can measure in a test. It might have been, since then we have developed many different models of teaching and learning, which might have changed this. But still, even though a long time has passed, the evidence for one-to-one tutoring is quite convincing. And then Bloom actually described this as the 2 sigma problem. And the reason he described this as a problem was that the main drawback isn't pedagogy, it's for economical reasons. So it would be too expensive for societies to bear the costs for one-to-one tutoring. And therefore he called for researchers and teachers to develop alternative models, group teaching models that could be as effective, or at least nearly as effective as one-to-one tutoring. And that was why he called it a problem. But another approach that back in those days when we didn't have online learning that he didn't think about was to explore, are there other ways that we can do one-to-one online tutoring in more cost-effective ways? And that is something that we're experiencing with in our research and development project. One example is a project we're running called Math Coach. It was started in Stockholm in 2009 and offers K-12 students help with their homework in the evenings. So we basically employ a large number of teacher students that are becoming mathematics teachers, and they work every evening and are available online. This is a service that is free for all K-12 students living in our collaborating municipalities, and those are the ones that fund the project. So for example, the 2 biggest cities in Sweden, Stockholm and Gothenburg, are part of this project, which means that all K-12 students living in those cities can get free tutoring every evening. So this is an example of a Math Coach conversation. There's a chat to the left. In this case, the K-12 students has taken a photograph of a math problem with her mobile phone and have uploaded it. The tutor and K-12 students can draw together on a whiteboard. And one reason we use chat is that tutors usually work with between 3 and 5 K-12 students at the same time in different chat windows. That is what they can cope with. 4 or 5 is usually a maximum. But it also gives the K-12 students the opportunity to stop and reflect, to work on subsets of a problem. So it's a sort of kind of synchronous way of discussing. And there's also this back end of the system. So here is where the tutors meet. That they work in 3 cities, in Stockholm, Gothenburg, Jönköping, usually about 10 every evening, and they have a chat where they interact. It's also from here that students are assigned to tutors. There's a list of tutors of students in a queue. You can see all possible conversations, go back to previous conversations and those kinds of things. So the development of this service and the software is something that we have done as part of our research. And what we have learned really is that one-to-one online tutoring is about so much more than teaching and cognitive development. So in order to quickly develop a relationship with someone that you probably often never have met or don't know who they are is a challenge. So, for example, it's common that students come and are quite frustrated, that they might have a test the next day and want quick and fast help. Then the tutors need to have the competence to provide emotional support to turn these frustrations into a productive dialogue, trying to build from what the K-12 students already know, work a lot with questions. And this means that even though students often come with a quite specific problem, the average length of a conversation is 41 minutes currently. So one other project that we just started now in January, we call it Talk Math. And the idea of this project is really to take the software and the lessons learned from the Math Coach software, from the Math Coach project, and release it to the public. And the idea is that this software should be able to be used by anyone, any student, any teacher, or anyone that would like to discuss and learn mathematics in real time together. So we see a number of potential ways that this platform could be used, but the idea really here is that we don't know. It's the users that will decide how this software will be used. And the research will then be based on quite fundamental questions such as who is deciding to use this software, and why are they using it, and how are they using it. So the idea is to have this iterative development process and to learn a lot along the way. So if it will be able to use standalone from a website, or to integrate through learning management systems, MOOCs, by using open standards. So if any one of you here would like to try it when we release it, hopefully in September, you can go to this website and sign up, and we will send you information as soon as it's available. So one of the benefits of doing things online, but in particular in our case, online tutoring, is that we can store everything and analyze our conversations. So since we started this project in 2009, we have a database on 35,000 conversations. So we have access to lots of statistics, and we can help the municipalities to understand things like what kind of problems are K-12 students struggling with, at what time in their education do they need help, to what extent are they satisfied with different types of tutoring, and at what point in time do they use this service. And not surprisingly, we have by far the most users the day before national tests. That's when they all come. Not many now before the summer break, but one of our interests now is really this idea of question asking. So we really believe that the key in tutoring is about asking good questions. Listening, asking follow-up questions, and digging deeper. And I think there's many reasons why this is the case. So for example, this study from Grass Persson found that a student in a tutoring session asked approximately 240 times more questions as compared in conventional class. Tutors also ask more questions, 1.5 times more questions. So we really believe that in order to improve tutoring, there's question asking is key. So what we have done is that we have started to analyze all the questions that could be retrieved from our database. We currently are working with this huge list of all questions that have been asked in the project, and there's more than 100,000 questions that we're working with. But to help us make sense of them, we're organized in doing frequency analysis. So we can actually see what is the most common questions that tutors ask in tutoring. And not surprisingly, the most common question is, what can I help you with? And that's basically how they start. So that's something we could have guessed. But then we can learn other things. So another very frequently asked question is, how are you thinking? And this is a question that encouraged the K-12 students to elaborate and explain in text what they are thinking about a certain problem, how they are addressing it. Another good question could be, how do you mean? That is something that where the student is encouraged to explain their thinking, not only tell what they are doing. Another example is the question, are you with me? And that is probably this question where the tutor is doing this direct instruction and just checking, are you listening? Are you with me? Which is a question that maybe has to be used sometimes, but maybe not too much. So one thing we're trying to do is looking at these questions and to see, can we see correlations with learning outcomes, student satisfactions, things like that. Can we find questions that seem to be very good for the learning process? From a more practical point of view, we would like to explore how these examples of what could constitute high quality questions could be used in practice. So when we develop our own software, we would like to implement this idea of support for question asking. So on a basic level, they might simply be used as inspirations for tutors. So as part of their training or a part of their competence development, to get them to think about what kind of questions am I asking as compared to other students. For example, to what extent do I as a tutor ask short answer as compared to long answer questions? What do I think, how do I think that this influenced the learning of the K-12 students? Second, we have this idea that we could build a library of questions, so suggested questions to the tutors that they could select or adapt based on what they think is appropriate in the specific situation. So not artificial intelligence in that sense, it's more computer support in the hands of tutors. But we can also see the software could even adapt and ask questions based on the current situation, to suggest questions based on what is currently happening. So this is a very early just mock-up how we're thinking about this, but we have this idea that at current point in time, the software might suggest a few questions to the tutor could select or adapt the questions, or could go into this library and use other questions. So in order to summarize and try to have some time for discussion, I'm hoping in this talk that I've inspired you in two ways. So on a more general level, I try to build on this idea to diversify e-learning, but there are so many different ways that we could do e-learning that go beyond conventional one-to-many learning, or even collaborative learning that many of us are doing, and complement these network perspectives on learning. On a more specific level, I just want to remind you about one-to-one tutoring. That is something that exists, it's out there, and it can be used in so many different ways. So for example, as a teacher, are there ways that you could use online learning in your courses or projects? Could your PhD or master students tutor your bachelor students? Could your students tutor each other? If you're doing peer assessment, can you add more opportunities for interaction and feedback? Or maybe you and your colleagues could use Talk Math or similar software to be available for your students at times when there's a need, rather than when you happen to be scheduled to meet your students. So very quickly, I just want to mention a few people that have been working with us, especially on the research. There are many tutors and that are part of this project, but Stefan, Simon, Malin, and Martha that has been working with us. These are the references that I've been using, so these are for images and literature, and I would be happy to, they will be shared on SlideShare, I think, after the conference. So thank you very much for listening.
I think now we can take a couple of questions from the audience. Yes, please. Maybe we have a microphone? No. Okay, I think maybe if you speak louder, we can...
Yeah, can you hear me back there?
Yes. Okay.
Even now, when I face the speaker?
I can repeat. Yeah.
So thank you for this.
Thank you.
I was thinking, based on theories of learning, the idea that peer learning is also something very important. And given the metaphor of this flower that you use, what about one-to-few relationships in terms also of the economy of the tutorial setup?
Yeah. That's a very good question. And if you go back to Bloom's study from 1984, he called it one-to-one, but actually their studies was sometimes there were 2 or 3 people that are tutored simultaneously. What we also try to do is that this is based on this idea where you can actually join several people if you want to. So in some cases, there might be a tutor working with students that feel that they're stuck and they ask a colleague, can you join us in this room? Sometimes there's a similar conversation going and you bring them together. So to some extent, they are doing it, but I think they're not used to do, we're so used to thinking about we teach one-to-many or we teach one-to-one, but this in between is something that we really could develop. I think so. And also to be very clear, so this talk is not about replacing or doing it. It's a complementing way of trying to think about this.
Could I just, well, we have a project, and my colleague Julia Messina Dahlberg and I, where we have looked at how in authentic language learning situations, how tutors let go of their pupils in virtual spaces, and then they meet in smaller groups. So that is the reason I asked. But this is language learning, you're looking at maths, which is also something interesting.
Yes, it could be. And one idea, so when we would like to explore in this project we call Talk Math that was just recently started, we want to let go of this idea that it's always a tutor or a teacher that is helping someone else. So anyone can be available. So I don't know if you know the story about Khan Academy, where Salman Khan was available for his cousins in the US, or it's this idea that anyone could help anyone in discussing mathematics, or small groups of students.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, I'm from Harvard University. Thank you so much, Stefan, for that talk. Very inspirational. When the MOOC hype was starting, we thought that we could now provide education to the entire world and would provide education to developing countries, for instance. And now research shows us it's only the highly educated using MOOCs too, and we this way kind of dividing the gap between the highly educated and the not so educated even further. I was wondering, do you have some research on, do you know what kind of students use your system here? And are this the good students becoming even better, or is it the ones who are really struggling and need this as help? Do you have some research on it?
Yeah, we have lots of statistics. We don't have maybe on the research level on that, but our hunch is really that we reach many that are already very good at math, and that is certainly a challenge. So even though it's free, it's really has lots to do with marketing, and we can see in different municipalities has been successful to different degrees. So some really target the parents. So for example, when the parents come for a meeting at school, they would tell them about this project, and that seems to be really be a key. But we can see now when we're looking at lots of logs from this project, something that I found very interesting was that often quite students that are not so confident in math often come and just work on a problem in the tutoring session. So they would just tell the tutor, now I'm doing this, now I'm doing that, and the tutor is listening. And that seems to be someone who's there and just supporting you. But yes, I certainly think that's a challenge to reach those that really need this. And I think that's similar for maybe all of our e-learning projects. How do we reach those that really need it? How do we get the teachers that really need to come to this conference to be here? That's another question. Yeah.
There's one question and then the final question. Okay, please.
Simon Carolan from the Cross. Thank you for your presentation. It's very interesting. I'm kind of wondering whether there's a feedback system. So we have the students with the pupils are working on activities at home. Does any of that information go back into the school so that teachers can adapt what they're doing in the classroom to the specific needs of the pupils?
No, so not at that level. And actually, currently it's anonymous in the way that you can be anonymous if you want to. And we get information on what course they're studying, what municipality they're in. So what each municipality is that we do this yearly report. So we have this report for the whole project and then for each municipality. So, and some of them are quite small, have 1, 2, 3 schools. Then they get very detailed feedback. But on a specific level, no, we don't get that. But again, that is something I think we could do in a more open system like Math Coach. If you're available as a teacher or your teacher team is available, you could also have the statistics at your end. So I think that's something we could explore. But no, just on a more general level. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I agree that the question and answering individually is deep, getting into deeper knowledge and learning. And that's what we do when we do the theses, bachelor, master, and PhD thesis. And that's where the unique and the extra contribution comes from the student. But the problem has been scaling up, or there are so many questions. We've developed a software for asking questions before, the basic questions, and building on this, you can have another interaction. So I think that is very important. We believe that the students get 430 extra hours in that system. But I also want to say that when you do this on a distance, there is one thing to provide questions in written and have them to reflect in advance before you meet them. But also, you need to have oral interaction, because as you give me feedback now, you give me feedback every second. An email. In one minute, we will have an interaction of about 50 question and answers or agreements and so on. So it's also important to have oral interaction on the distance when you have a question and answer situation.
Yeah. That's a very good question. We always get different versions of that question. So I got many times. Why do you use it text-based versus, for example, you could use a video conference or even Meet? And I think that we'll probably turn on this possibility that if you want to do video conference, you should be able to do it. But we've learned that, and I was quite skeptical in the beginning, but we learned some things about doing this in chat. And one word that I mentioned, this idea that the tutor can work with several students at the same time. Another is that you can stop and work in a quite natural way. So in a video conference, it feels a bit strange that you're recorded while you're working on a problem, but in a chat, it works quite well. And the third is that we've seen that students actually develop a language for mathematics. So they have to describe in words what they are doing. And that is something that is a very big challenge in schools today, to talk about mathematics. Often you can solve problems, but you can't talk to anyone else about how you're solving them. So that's just to say that there are also benefits of doing the text-based. So maybe some kind of combination in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now I would like to invite the next speaker, Manila Srinivas, from a professor and head of the Department of Mass Media in Chinaram College in Mumbai, India. She is a self-starter with over 15 years of teaching experience across various colleges and roles, including teaching, administration, content, and syllabus development. Professor Srinivas is listed as top 10 experts for mass communication in India by India Today's magazine. And now Professor Manila will share with us digital communication platforms and media educators in undergraduate schools of mass communication in India. Thank you.
Good morning, each one of you present here. As I stand here, I'm very proud of the fact that I'm the only one as an Indian standing here representing my country. Hi. So, there are a lot of feelings right now, but I'll try to contain it in myself. And excuse me if I become a little nervous or a little emotional, because it's a wonderful platform which Eden has helped us to share our experiences. Well, we don't do too much of online learning right now in media schools in Mumbai, but my presentation is more on the diversity which we, incorporate in the form of inclusive education. So I will take you quickly through what exactly we do in the media schools of Mumbai, because I can't speak about media education in India in general, because that would be really vast. But giving you a little background about the fact that we have about 100 colleges which offers the same curriculum, which is of University of Mumbai, which is a 150-year-old university, a very prestigious university in our country. And we have our own challenges of adhering to those conditions which are based on what the university provides us with. So that would be the structure of my presentation. I'll run through it very quickly. I've been told that we've got about 20 minutes. I think most of us do a very similar thing in our own space, but just to give you a brief idea of what we are doing at our departments. We call our schools as colleges, so if there is a confusion, please understand that we call our schools of media as colleges. And we have about 700 colleges which are affiliated to our university, of which 100 colleges give media courses. So it's huge. We have huge numbers and we are struggling with numbers right now. A quick definition, what I understood what diversity is. We have been discussing it yesterday, we will be discussing it in the next 3 days. So I think diversity means we are supposed to understand practically every aspect of the background from which people come to us as students. And we as facilitators, I would not call it anymore as teachers, are supposed to also have a background where we are sensitized with these things, and hence we give the learning as a complete learning. This is what inclusive education should be. So when we in our society have multiple cultural backgrounds from which people come, and we speak 27 languages across about 19 states. So there are dialects, there are, nobody speaks only one language. We have more than 3 to 4 languages that the student also speaks when he comes to a university. But yes, there are very strict, what you call as levels in which the society is categorized. I'll tell you what exactly I'm talking about. But basically, inclusive education, as I was reading about it, it is definitely not about something which is a short-term kind of a solution. We ourselves are doing it for the last 16, 17 years in our department, consciously trying to understand that people who come from different backgrounds, how we, backgrounds I also mean financial backgrounds. So we have people who are extremely affluent in our courses, and we have people who have come from very, very humble backgrounds where basic education is also very difficult. So the classroom is a blend of the two. I want you to have a quick look at what exactly is the scene in the next few years with digital education and online education. Now, if you read the slide, the one which says that India is projected to be the world's most populous country by 2022, which will surpass China. So manpower is huge in our country. And people in the age of 25 will be about 65% below the age of 35 in India. So I think somewhere the young Indians are there in the next few years who are going to change a lot of things in the country. And diversity, online, e-learning, everything is picking up very fast. It is, as Stephen was telling, one-to-one learning is impossible in our country. Impossible. We can't do it. We do mass learning. So there are schools which teach, which is not enough for the student, so they go to private coaching classes, where if I have to teach math for a private coaching class, it has to be 150 students in a small air-conditioned room. That itself is a privilege we have. We don't have a weather like this, I'm sorry. The first thing I saw when Ilva brought me to the university is there are no ceiling fans, there are no air conditioners. We all live with that in India. So I don't want you to look at it in a very detailed way, but you see the yellow graph that shows the increase in the K-12 students' enrollment in India. This is a very cramped thing, but only thing I'm saying is the number of universities, colleges, institutions, higher education, everything is seeing an upward growth. This is something which is worrying, that compared to the number of students who are enrolling, the number of teachers or faculty or professors or associate professors, assistant professors, we all have different levels in which we take teachers. That's not at the same pace. So if I go to a classroom, I teach 120 students. And my challenge is to keep pin drop silence. So the first 15 minutes goes only in telling them what happened in the last lecture to what we are going to do now, and then the 1 hour goes away. So, completing the portion becomes very difficult for us. So what we do is we give them a lot of online links to study and come and make presentations. So I think I'm coming from a very different background here to tell you that education at our level is very different. This is a small video which I want you to have a look at that. Yeah. Let's see the box.
We looked at the different ways e-learning is finding its place in schools across India. Joining me now, Mr.
So this is a news channel, NDTV, which is one of the top news channels in India, which did a huge program on how online education is going to change in the years to come. So just taken about a minute of it to understand the figures, which are in millions. Millions of students are going to be enrolled. There will be a number of 1,000 colleges which are going to come up. So online education, yes, but in a very limited form, I guess.
Samir Poti, co-founder of Teacher Learning. Thank you so much for talking to us. I begin by asking you that how would you say that technology has changed the way we learn in India today? How is it taking over the traditional modes of learning?
Technology itself is changing fundamentally, and as technology changes, what you can do with it changes. The concept of social media, the concept of people staying connected with each other also came up very recently in the last few years. I think one of the things that, apart from the generational shift and the way the attitude and behaviors of people change, the other aspect also has been that given that education is a sector which takes time to change, it takes time to accept things, given that a lot of time has passed now that technology has been around in education, the acceptance has been gradually growing and it will continue to grow.
So this idea, the way people consume education has changed over a period of time. How has e-learning taken over the education space?
The way people receive education has changed over the years, and that's the reason for that is because the way we consume anything, any content, any media has also changed. So we belong to a generation where we got exposed to the cable TV for the first time. Today the kids are born with smartphones and in their hands, and they want to learn through apps from day one. They want to learn through devices. So that is what has changed, and then that creates a demand for a new medium of teaching and learning, and not necessarily creates a demand in terms of the education per se. It's still the same education, it's still the same things that you were supposed to learn.
Yeah, that's the figure I wanted you to have a look at that. So this was a video which was taken a couple of years back, so obviously it's already doubled. So in the years to come, it's definitely going to. So as I was telling you, this is how it is. We have offline tutoring, so the same thing is moved to online tutoring. But the numbers are the same. One-to-one, you have to pay very heavily if you want something like that. It's very expensive if you want a tutor to exclusively teach you in the comfort of your own house. So I just wanted you to give a brief introduction of that. I quickly come to what I do, which is media education. I've been teaching media courses for the last 16 years, and we have always been trying to do something which is very different in the department. So there are a lot of limitations which we have. Maybe the slides will tell you if I have the time to show you all the slides. But yes, we get a structured fee from the University of Mumbai, so we can't change that. We get for 60 students, 2,500 applications, so we can only take 60. The rest we have to let go. So we can't increase the number of students, we can't increase the fees, and hence the teachers suffer because we don't get to be paid at par with international standards. So that's quickly the Indian media scenario, which is, I'm sure, everywhere the same in all the countries. This is a KPMG report which shows that the media industry is doing very well in our country. Especially print, which is not doing very well in most of the countries, as in the hard copy of newspapers. We look at usually e-papers, online portals, but for us, newspapers in the regional languages are doing extremely well. The registration of newer titles are happening to the point of 1.5%, and the growth is 9% across the mediums, which is newspaper, television, and digital platforms. Ad revenue, if you see, is more on the digital advertising. So it is going towards digital, but yes, it's taking time. So if this is the way the growth is going to be, the media students whom we educate have to be doing a complete learning. So whether we can provide or not, we strive to give them what exactly they could learn from international learning. That is, they get to understand how the media works in the rest of the world, what exactly is media learning happening across the countries, and hence they should be also updated. And this is purely because we feel like doing that with them. We don't have any other ambitions other than educating our students in a better way. So this is the growth of the internet usage. And this is what KPMG says, that most of the users now are on the mobile. And on mobile also is more the entertainment. So the media students whom we teach, we have to develop them in such a way that they're very good with their content development for entertainment. So then it's very important for us not only to teach math and chemistry and physics, we have to teach them probably all the disciplines in the beginning of their term. We don't have the time to do classroom teaching, so we give them a lot of online options which they study. There we develop their content. and make them understand that a media student should know almost everything possible. These are some of the institutions in the top institutions in India, as I keep boasting about it whenever I meet anybody. Though I'm 10th on that list, but I'm the only one from Mumbai. So that makes me happy. So this is what Mumbai University is doing. I tried telling you, we have 700 colleges, of which 100 colleges offers media. And the fee structure, the student strength is all controlled by the university. So this is what I was telling you about my department, which is listed as a top 10 in India, India being a 12 billion, 1.2 billion. So I feel very happy about the fact that I have branded myself as a very good department where there is real learning happening. And how do we do it? We try to do it differently in our department. We keep moving ahead of the time what we have in our curriculum. So I was trying to speak with a lot of people whom I know in Mumbai who are working with the media schools, and a few questions that they were asked were, are you satisfied with the media curriculum? Do you think the existing infrastructure is good? Do you think online will be a better option? And you think these two forms can be mutually supporting each other? 64% are very happy. I think they are the losers. They are very happy with whatever is given to them. So the 2% which say they're very happy with the existing infrastructure is the people who are from the private schools, where the fee structure is extremely high and they get probably everything, like how Jönköping University has. I think that was a very clear answer, no? Yeah, there were a few people who were very worried about the way teaching is done in the colleges of Mumbai, the schools, media schools of Mumbai. And they said that it is about time that everything may just go online. And that was like 4%. So I think when you look at Indian society and the Indian education system, culture plays a very important role. Diversity is always there, multilingual students are always there, and the challenges are different in every year that we face. But yeah, we have been trying to do the best with our students. I would skip that very fast. That's a newspaper which tells them what are the issues in the society. So they are journalists, they go out, get stories, come back, design a newspaper, make 1,000 copies of that and circulate it in 100 colleges of Mumbai. So they get to know what marketing is, they get to know what exactly are the challenges of running a business and of newspaper, of course. And this is something which I'm very happy to share with you. I hope I have 5 minutes. Yes, so this is something which you've been doing it for 16 years. So when you speak about diversity, there are so many states in our country that our own students do not know what is happening as issues. So they travel to these remote areas, make a 20-minute documentary film, and then they bring it back, and we have a competition among the students where we screen these films as a film festival. And trust me on this, the issues which they were so allergic to as a part of the curriculum, they want to speak about it for an hour. So they're so happy to share their experiences. They come back and say, I think this was the best project we have done in our undergraduate program. And now we have started putting these films online for the newer batches to have a look at these films, that this is how you have to be making in the years to come. So I think we use the online facilities to a limited way, but yeah, we do. So there were about 2-3 films which I thought I would just show you quickly the glimpse of it. Maybe I may not have the time. Where the films speak about casteism, the film speaks about surrogacy, the film speaks about the Narendra Modi's demonetization policy. I don't know how many of you are aware of that, but there was a lot of changes that we went through in the last year. So these were the glimpses of those films. I think I'll skip that. So the films have really taught them what diversity is all about and how you can, sensitize yourself if you don't come from that part of the society. Well, I like what Gurian has put it in her journal, the title of which is The Benefits of Diversity in Education. I thought we all would agree with what is said there. It has to be authentic public places. We should have classroom activities and, most importantly, diverse campus. We can't send our children to the same atmosphere where the families are coming from. You have to bring them to diverse backgrounds. In connection with the journalism courses, it is very important that the student is sensitized about the religion part of the society. So when I'm reporting, I should also know what is it that I'm reporting and how careful I am about my reporting styles. So I really like what Meera has put it in one of her books on global journalism. She's a very good friend of mine. I thought I must quote her. That newsroom of a media house in India represents different languages, caste, classes, and gender. Well, we have a digital divide here that we are struggling with. Education for all is very important for us. We are trying our best to get the best for our students, the best online facilities for our students, but I may have a smartphone in a very mofussil area of India where sometimes there may not be any electricity. So what do I do with this one? So these are our challenges which we are facing. Most of the media schools where the education is happening, which I am related to, are very metro kind of cities where we don't have these problems. But I am talking in general about the education system that is prevailing in our country right now. If I have the time, I can show the documentary. No? Okay.
Unless we don't have questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we feel challenged a lot with the presentation time, and maybe now your questions will reveal your thinking also towards harmonizing the world and the global issues. So I open the floor for your questions now. Yes, please.
When you say it's impossible, I think it must be possible. Because do you know liberal education?
Yeah.
Study circles?
Yes.
What's your opinion about that?
Liberal education is something which is still in India very, very niche, very expensive, and it's a very, it's something which is meant for the affluent groups. It is not meant for the common man. Where you could pick up a few streams of your choice and study what you want to. So the system is very, very stiff and very, what you call as straight. You do your K-12, you get to a college which we call, where you do your 17 and 18, as in 11th and 12th we call it. And then you choose your career from there, which is like engineering, journalism, sciences. So you have to compete with about 15,000 or more than that kind of students for each seat that you're trying to get into. So the numbers are very high.
But on the other hand, we're a small country, we have a lack of teachers, but you also have a lot of teachers.
But that's also not enough. Yes.
Media education used to be very popular. Do your students get jobs
Yes.
after the studies, or how is the situation in your country?
I have these courses in Mumbai, which is the hub of media. So jobs are not a problem. When you identify media jobs, they are also very different kinds. So you could work with a newspaper, you could work with a television channel, you could work with a public relation agency, you could work with the world of advertising. So when I say jobs, the students are in a position today to pick up what they want and leave what they don't want. So there are jobs, that's not a problem. Yes.
In Sweden, we have education broadcasting company.
Yeah.
What do you have in?
We have a state-run agency we call as UGC, which is University Grants Commission. They run these classrooms for them, but that's not popular. Because the state television, radio, and the content is very flat. There are no efforts made to make it very interesting. So they don't do really well in our country. As in we call it as Doordarshan. So it has the maximum viewers, but if you watch the television for about half an hour, you want to switch to another channel, which is more interesting in the way it presents, in the way the content is designed.
My experience is that India is a very bureaucratic country. So how do you use IT a lot for managing your students, or do you spend a lot of time for manual operations, registering students, correcting exams? You know, where do you put your hours?
I think we are changing now. The numbers are so huge that if you say online, assessment of new papers, that itself is a very difficult job for us. But we are doing it now. So for a commerce graduate, there are 75,000 students who appear for the final year of their degree.
But they basically write paper and pen exams.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
They have huge numbers to correct.
Yes. So we spend about 15 days in the university correcting.
Yes.
We are not allowed to bring the papers home. It's not available online. Now we have started it from the last year. So hopefully we'll get a laptop where we can just sit and do the online correction. But yes, till now we've been doing manual. And that's difficult. But yes, in media schools like ours, what we've done is we very smartly used the group mails, the WhatsApp groups, the Facebook pages, the Twitter handles, everything we use so that the students are connected commonly on a common platform. That's something we do.
I think maybe you can save some hours in administration by using IT.
I hope so. Yes.
The last question. So if I understood right, there is a high competition to get to an educational system.
Yes.
And then when you have students there, are the dropout rates also a problem? Or do all students complete and once they are in the system?
When you say the competition is very difficult for you to get to that one seat. So for example, in my course, I'm the queen of the media courses in Mumbai. So I sit on my chair and say, listen, I don't want you, I want you. Like that's what I've been enjoying for a while. For the simple reason, I get about 2,500 applications of which I take only 30 students. And those 30 students will not drop out because they have earned the seat.
So you do everything to keep them, or do they do everything?
I think they stay. Now it's a situation where I say they stay.
Thank you very much.
Manila, and we all. Now we have our next keynote, Franz Meyer, who is a professor in interactive media, digital culture, and game studies, and vice dean at the Faculty of Communication Sciences at University of Tampere. He is a techno-humanist researcher with an avid interest in digital culture in its many forms, currently heading a games research group in the new media department. He aims to change the world to better by making us better aware of our multidimensional, immaterial as well as material existence. Maybe Franz will give us the answer how to harness the world.
Thank you. Very happy to be here. So I'm coming from Finland. I'm head of the Game Research Lab in the University of Tampere and also Vice Dean of the new Faculty of Communication Sciences. So I think that I will probably bring a bit more diversity in this conference by not being an e-learning scholar per se. I'm working in the field of game studies, so my perspective is on understanding games as a form of culture, art form of popular media, popular culture. We also are very happy to have secured funding for new Center of Excellence in Game Culture Studies. So that's something that starts January next year, and there are only a few of these kind of spearhead scientific centers in our country. So that is a proud moment for us. So games are something that can be approached from multiple angles. They can be considered as, from this kind of contemporary perspective, as something that is primarily digital these days. We have games in our mobile phones. People are playing games while on buses, while on metros. People are playing with their laptops on spare moments of their work, etc., etc. But play of games as such is ancient. It is also an ancient social phenomenon. Play is something that is primordial even. It goes to the ages beyond humanity and culture. If you look at the evidence of animal play, it is all over the animal kingdom. And there are reasons why animals are playing. In human culture, play has taken this kind of dedicated, rule-bound cultural forms that are passed from generation to generation. So it has developed into a rich cultural tradition. And it is also a dedicated field of learning as such. In game studies, our perspective is to understand both what games are, how they are used, what is the motivation and purposes of playing games, and also understanding the evolution of games and play in wider society. Currently, regarding education, it is clear that games are something that can be used as an environment for learning. So online environments that are also gaming environments like Second Life and other virtual worlds are something that can be providing learning benefits in this kind of instrumental sense. But games are also like this kind of vehicles for stealth learning. While you are playing games that are fun, you are also encountering different kind of challenges. And while those challenges are accumulating in a good game design, you are developing new skill sets and new learning as you go on. And this is not limited to so-called educational games or learning games, but in all games there's some kind of at least informal learning that is taking place. From my perspective, I'm particularly interested in the third dimension of games and learning, games as subject matter of learning. Because I'm a professor of game studies, I have students who need to learn to understand and appreciate the diversity of games from multiple angles. And this is also something that I like to focus mostly in this. So what is ludic literacy concept, and how that is related to this another topic of my talk, diversity in game cultures. So ludic literacy here is this kind of emerging concept that there's no academic agreement yet, or no dominant theory what games-related literacy is or should be, but there are multiple theories and multiple approaches. Fundamentally, this is related to ontology of games, what games are and how our conceptions of games are approached, and also how play is understood, what kind of are the requirements for setting up a game, choosing it, engaging a gameplay, understanding what needs to be done, and what are the outcomes of this kind of particular playful behaviors. So one approach that I have promoted and put forward here is this kind of basic 6 levels of ludic literacy model. First of all, in order to understand that you are playing a game, what is needed, like I call ludic mindset. So that means that you are understanding that you are doing something for sake of play, rather than for instrumental reasons. It has what is called endogenic meaning. It is done for the pleasure of its own sake. And it's important to sort of understand the basic difference between play and seriousness. That when you are, for example, play fighting, it is different from real fighting. There's this kind of a playful simulation, or this kind of separation of meaning between this kind of face-to-face value and this kind of second layer of activity. So it requires this kind of capability of distancing from this kind of immediate signification system and stepping to the second order signification system. But this is a capacity that all of us have. Even small child can play. Basically, a sand castle can connotate a fantasy castle, and we are capable of creating worlds with our minds. But it's important to understand that real play starts from this kind of ludic mindset, and when you are sort of putting in various kinds of instrumental goals to the play, there's also always various kinds of tensions that are facing this kind of basic orientation. Then are what I call functional game skills. So basically, in order to be able to understand games, you need to be able to play games. In functional level, you need to be able to move the pieces, and you need to be able to access the digital interface, know the controller. Contemporary video games, for example, can be quite challenging, even to, for example, a driving game. It might be challenging to keep your simulated vehicle in the road. I'm very bad in driving games, so I know this personally. And there's this kind of increasing emphasis on simulated or this kind of natural like interfaces for games, so that everybody would be able to play the game from the skill set that they already have. So if you know Nintendo's Wii consoles and other movement-based systems, we all are capable of skilled movements and can play tennis, for example, if we have the basic tennis playing skills. Also as a digital version, if the gaming interface is something that maps one-to-one our body movements and our sort of existing skill sets into the game. But there's a certain kind of learning threshold to most digital game systems and also analog game systems. And if we are talking about contemporary board games, for example, they can be rather complex in the interface level. There might be, for example, combination of different kind of card decks, different kind of units and board elements with rather complex rules. So even the functional level is something that usually requires some learning. Then there's a third level of strategic and meta skills of gaming, and by that I mean that when you have mastered the basics of the game, then the real game starts, and that means when you are approaching game as a dynamic system, that you realize that it's actually the complex consequences of your actions that make this game interesting. If it's playing against computer, you need to understand how the computer reacts to your strategic decisions. Or if it's a multiplayer game, then you need to understand what are the dynamics of game when there are multiple players, multiple parties, whether it's collaboration or competition-based setting. All that is important. And that relates to the fourth layer, social gameplay skills. So even a single player game has social consequences. When you are turning away from face-to-face interaction and turning towards your gaming device, it is certain kind of social action. But particularly when you are playing together and when there are multiple different kind of people, diversity of players involved, then you need to understand sort of fundamentals of social play. What is fair play? How do you play so that everybody feels included? How do you not humiliate a person who, for example, doesn't have as high gaming skills as an expert? There are various kind of additional rules that flexible gaming systems accommodate, like handicaps, that if there's a child playing with adult, a child might be given specific benefits. And when you are in multiplayer situations, there's quite a lot of this kind of non-written sort of implied rules that relate to this kind of social levers of playing skills. Then fifth, the creative and productive game-related competencies are something that are very important for example, I mentioned this kind of handicap rules. When people are playing even traditional card and board games, they modify rules. It is something that is very typical. You have your house rules, and you might add elements to the board game that you already master in a certain level. In digital games, you can say that it is not so flexible, that the game is programmed to work in certain ways, and it runs its course as the computer code dictates. But that is actually not true, and has not been for a couple of decades. Since 1990s onwards, at least, it has been possible to use various kind of level editors to actually learn to understand the game design from inside out, by making modifications to the game, adding elements there, and by creating something that you can then play yourself and share with your friends, and later on online in internet and in dedicated gaming services. And this is a field that is now rapidly expanding. For example, our team is actively involved with setting up what are called game jams, events that typically last 48 hours, 2 days, where people are given a challenge of creating small games from the scratch in this kind of informal teams, and improvise the new kind of game creations. And there is one methodology for educating people about games, so that when we are moving to this kind of era of digital information and communication technologies, where digital games particularly could be seen to provide this kind of lexicon and grammar for interactive media, because that is where interactivity really is in its native form. They are not only capable of reading games, being passive recipients of commercially produced games, but people are also capable of creating games, of speaking, using the language of rules, game elements, and game mechanics in order to create their own expressions about different kind of topics. And this is certainly something that is diversifying game cultures currently quite radically. People with different kind of priorities than commercial companies are creating games that are related, for example, their life situations, being a mother or a father, a small child, talking about psychological problems of alienation, of loneliness, of depression. So when people are capable of having that level of competency and literacy, of ludic literacy, of creative kind, they can provide new additions and enrich the development of game cultures and our culture and society more comprehensively. As the final sixth layer I have included in this model, this kind of more broader, wide-ranging media literacies that are related to games and play. And that is, of course, central when we are discussing games in academia. Did the battery run out? Do we have the power source available for the computer? Well, I continue even without the slides, but it would be great to have. Yeah. So in this kind of broader media creation context, it is important to understand that digital games, in particular, they are both based on media industry, existing models of production and advertisement circulation, and there are commercial reasons why certain elements have been included into that game product and some elements have not been included. There are reasons why, for example, male and female characters are depicted in certain ways there. And that is this kind of standard media education that one also needs to apply into the field of interactive media, so that we are capable of guiding the younger generation to be not only superficially proficient game players, but also critical sort of citizens of the society and culture, also in the era of games, so that they can stand up and ask for better, more high quality, more artistically sort of ambitious content for digital games and field of play. That is good sound. So I need to get the next slide because it's basically based on some data that I cannot describe to you just orally. So
could we have
yeah, maybe a question.
in between?
Yeah, sure. This is good moment to ask a question, maybe.
I have a question.
Please.
To what extent do you think that we actually make use of this gamification trend that you are describing for us right now? Do you have some
In the educational sector?
Yes,
Yeah.
in education, yes, definitely. I mean, here we are in e-learning and distance learning, but in other areas too. But
yeah, gamification is a very specific kind of phenomena where basically I interpret in the narrow sense that we are taking elements of game design, game mechanics, and applying it in this kind of utilitarian context. So companies, for example, have been very active in creating gamification within industry settings. There are learning games and for example, games that are designed into encouraging people to participate in the organization development, in the sales organization, something like that. The gamification of basic education At least as far as I know from evidence in Finland, it is not yet very well advanced. There are individual teachers who are very knowledgeable about games and have been, for example, designing games of their own to be used within the field of education in their classes. But I would say that currently gamification is most popular, for example, in the context of physical exercise, providing incentives for people to keep fit, or in setting up this kind of specific collective challenges for people to solve problems. So there has been, for example, environmental games that challenge people to be more aware about the elements of the consequences of their actions in consuming electricity or water, etc., etc. How about getting the
almost there.
Yeah, okay, that's
Stay
there.
on that also, right?
And then we just need the connector, and hopefully we'll get the image. My apologies, I didn't notice that the power connector was missing. Yeah, that's good. It's just taking some time to.
Doing a bit of three.
Yeah, that's the color wheel rotating. It is the slide 5 where that should be starting. While I was talking about gamification, the element that we are currently researching is called ludification. And that is the broader concept from this kind of human sciences perspective, that how society and culture more broadly is moving into what might be called era of games, that games have been starting to become the most important medium for younger people at least. And it's also something that is increasing as this kind of mode of participation in various kind of areas of life. So this is the figure that I was talking about. So this is most recent Finnish player parameter data. So this is a longitudinal study that we have been running for a long time in Finland, where we get this kind of annually representative, nationally representative data, where we try to capture all kinds of gameplay, its prevalence, who are playing, how much they are playing, what they are playing. So in Finland, at least, in traditional types of games, it is outdoor and this kind of outdoor yard games, children's games, but also this kind of physical exercise like petang, throwing metal balls in the field, or puzzle games on paper that are your safest bet if you really want to be inclusive in using games. Use that kind of traditional means, because it is roughly between 60 to 80% of population that are reporting that they are familiar, they are regularly or at least sometimes using these kind of games in their daily lives. But there are also card games, board games, parlor games that are popular in this kind of casual level, occasional play. But then in sports game, you can see that there's quite a lot of this kind of intense gameplay, like also in the puzzle games of paper, that some people are doing it quite a lot. But then, for example, traditional pub games are something that particularly is gender-based, segregated, so that male audience is doing quite a lot of more than. And then we also notify the popularity of bingo as this kind of luck-based game that was reported by our respondents. Then in the area of digital game times, also from this most latest player parameter data, you can see that it is again puzzle games that are the game type that is gaining reported as being most actively played and most popular in Finland. So it is something that you can find also young people, old people, all groups of people actively using. So relying on that is an interesting design choice also for learning purposes. Then adventure games is notable because in adventure game genres, the gender distribution is very equal. So females and males appreciate that equally, whereas in shooter games, male audience dominates. If we pick up other areas, there are role-playing games, for example, where the activity is much more centered in narrow audiences. Not so many people are doing that in population-wise, but the people who are doing role-playing games, they are investing time and energy into that genre quite intensely because of the complexity of those game types. So while we are talking about learning potential and outcome of these kind of different game genres, they are not equal, but different kinds of games provide very different kind of behaviors and experiences. Moving on fast, I think. The diversity of players is at least as large as is the diversity of different kind of games. So there are people who are very dedicated to games and people who say that I don't play games, they don't belong to my life. But actually, we have realized when we have been studying this field for some time that if you just persist and ask of people, roughly 98% of population actually is playing at least some form of game. So if you just keep on asking that, okay, are you like filling any crossword puzzles? Are you throwing darts? Finally, they remember that, oh yes, actually I do play games, but I didn't realize that I was playing games. But there's this kind of tilt in researcher population that many of the academics in this field, they are personally attracted to these more complex types of game, like massively multiplayer online computer role-playing games. And those genres are much more researched, better researched and studied than, for example, this kind of casual games like playing solitaire on computer or Candy Crush Saga or anything like that. So while we are putting forward various kind of formulations that what games are and what they do, there's a danger of oversimplification that games are actually many things for many different kind of people. I will just skip this and provide the reference in my final slide, but we have made this kind of a large-scale study where we did in-depth interviews of 100 or 200 people, I don't remember, but we profiled the population into this kind of three rough main mentality profile groups, where casual mentality profiles was the main one, so just playing to kill time, filling gaps and relaxing. But social mentality profile was equally important, gaming with kids, gaming with friends or mates, gaming for company, learning new people and getting friends there. And the committed mentality profile, where people are most attracted to actually learning about games, was the minority in this field. So roughly 8% of our studies say that they are actually gamers or game hobbyists, and 98% of the population are just players of games, but they don't have this kind of investment into this area. And in the field of representation of game players in game cultures, there's a lack of diversity. You can see that old and young people are not equally represented in game advertisement. They don't gain equal saying in the or voice within the cultures of gaming, and thereby they can easily also feel excluded from this field. So I think that it's important to recognize the diversity in game cultures. We don't need to introduce more diversity in this field. It is there already. Games, players, sociocultural practices surrounding games and play, they are highly diverse. We are just not very aware of that field, and it's a challenge for education in this field to really pay attention to this field more comprehensively. I'll just end by this call, play together. That is probably the most important lesson that we can take away from educational use of games also. It creates sense of togetherness. It is overcoming challenges together that really brings together people in a manner that creates community feeling, like very few things can do. So regardless of what the game content is, it is important to appreciate this kind of social and cultural consequences of games. Okay, thank you.
Actually, as we don't have time for questions, we had one chance to ask a question in the middle of this technical break. But I think we will use the possibility to discuss gamification with you during the conference. I hope you stay today. And thank you very much for your keynote now. And this is the gratitude from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So to finalize this plenary, I would like to tell you that the conference has just started. And in Eden, we have the team working together on different and diverse issues. And I would like now to ask executive committee members and vice president to stand up and say, if you have an issue, for example, on research issues in Eden, there is a vice president for research, Wim van Piet again, so here he is. If you have a question about membership and networking, we have Lisa Marie Blaschke, Vice President for Membership and Networking Activities, so here she is. If you have issues on open professional collaboration, on how to transfer these issues to national context and national organizations, we have Vice President Sandra Kuchina over there. Then Ebba Nilsson, she's responsible for quality assurance and she leads special interest group and the sessions that are organized now in the conferences under her supervision. Please address her. Also, we have communication issues, but Diana is not here. We have NEP members and other executive committee members. Please stand up and just wave to those. So we have Helga for NEP issues in executive committee. And others that I don't see right now with my eyes. Yes, NEP steering committee member. Yes, here we have finally, because I thought that we don't have actually the connection after this. So you have executive committee members, you have also NEP steering committee, you have portfolios and working groups, and the leaders of those groups here on the screen, and then NEP steering committee members on this slide. So please just come to the people, talk to them regarding any matters that are important for you. So use the space, use the networking possibilities, and enjoy the conference. Thank you very much for your attention.